Hey, welcome back to another edition of our skills and technique feature, and this time we're rocking out as we look at rock rolls. So what do we mean by rock rolls? Well, we mean rock rolls, rock slabs, anything where there's rock work, bedrock poking out of the ground, and you've got to get yourself through it, typically by rolling over it. That stuff that you've got to get up onto and over, you might be pedaling on the way in, you might even have to pedal through it. Here's a classic rock roll. This is sort of thing that you might come across in more natural terrain, even though this one's built. And there's a couple of different techniques we can use to deal with this type of feature. It is rollable, it's very steep, and therefore you'd have to moderate your speed. Make sure you're nice and centered on the bike, and you're going to be controlling your speed on the way in, and certainly off of the brakes when you get down to the bottom end of it. If this were a longer, taller gradient, the same thing would apply. You'd be trying to control your speed on the way in, down through the feature, but it's key when you make that transition onto the surface below that you're off the brakes, eyeballs are looking through, looking up the terrain. It's a common mistake. People are either too far out the back of the bike, in which case the bike wants to loop out on the bottom of this, on the exit, or they're a bit too weighted forward and the head's down and looking at the terrain immediately in front of them, in which case the bike wants to stall out. There's a real saving grace on anything that rolls out like this when you've got that point where the ground below meets the ground that you're on, where you just pick the chin up and look ahead and look through, and it helps pull the bike through. So we're going to roll this in a couple of different ways. We're going to come in nice and slow and steady and roll down the feature, and then we're going to come in a bit quicker and use the other technique, which is where you can send it to flat. Here we go. So we're looking through to the drop, controlling our speed, nice and slow on the way in, and then just pick the chin up and look forward on the way out. Okay, so a bit quicker on the entry, off the brakes, a little punch drop, and using the limbs to absorb the landing. So you've just seen a couple of examples of the way that we can take this particular rock drop. It's always good to look before you leap, don't forget that. Make sure you've got clean exit space down there, there's not too much interference that's going to hank the bike up and stall you out. And if there is, can you thread the needle and find a nice line through it? The other thing to look for is the clearance on your chainring. If something's quite severe on its edge, and it's likely that the chainring's going to touch the deck, what you have to do is just take some weight out the back of the bike and lift the rear wheel in the air and nose it into the feature. That said, you need plenty of room on the face of the feature in order to get the bike back down on the face, typically associated with more sort of granite style slabby pieces of rock that you get onto rather than stacks of boulders like this one. Okay, so not all rock rolls are steep and gnarly, some are a little bit more mellow in their angle. What you're looking for is somewhere for the wheels to hang up. In this situation, you'll see in the video, and we've got a bit of a groove in the bottom end there. I'm just aiming to get the front wheel into that, because as this is on the left turn, that's going to hook the front wheel up really good. Obviously, that bit of lower bedrock there is rolling out the way. We don't want to get that wheel on top or on that outside edge, because that's going to want to bulldozer and wash out from us, and you certainly won't want to be coming into the big lump of rock on the inside. This being engineered, it's got a different couple of types of stone in it, and the loose gravel that sits in between is pulling out onto those stones. Typically it'll be quite uniform in the rock, unless there's something a bit specific in the geology and you've got a contact where there's different types of rock mixed in amongst one another. It'll be quite uniform in the rock you're riding on. But here we're mixing in from the granites onto this other bedrock, which is smoother. So this is going to offer a bit more grip than this. And you're always, you know, as I say, just trying to look for something to get your wheels hooked into to get the traction. If there isn't that kind of edge to hook up onto, then expect that the wheels may slip. Lovely dry day today, warm and sunny. The soft rubber on the tyres is doing really good to get gripped up on this, but come a wet day, you might have green lichens and moss on. That's definitely, if it's green, it'll slip. If it's clean, it will grip until it gets very polished. Sometimes the rock, just like in here where people have been braking on it, it's going to get a little bit more polished up. So you're anticipating that the wheels might slip a little bit on that, so you're a bit steadier on the brakes. Okay, so it's not all about going downhill. Sometimes we're going to have to go up rock features as well. Again, it's all about feeling the grip, feeling the traction. Your ears are your friend. You can listen to how much traction that back wheel's getting and you'll feel it through the legs, the amount of bite. We don't want to stall out into things. That's going to give us a lot of trouble making forwards progression. Sometimes you might have to just press and drive the front wheel through things with the power. But if you can unweight the front end and get the front wheel in the air, lifting it up over the steps and ledges, that's going to help you a tremendous amount. Short stabby stuff like this, you need to attack it from the start. Basically, you need to just come in as hard and as fast as you can. Make sure you get the front wheel up onto that first step. Look for something in the ground to cheat that lift if you can. Might be a knob, a rock, a root. And if not, you're going to have to use your power to get that front wheel up onto it. And then thrusting and driving the bike through, getting back on the pedals again as quick as you can to get the power down to keep driving up through the crag. Obviously, something that comes into play in this type of terrain quite often is exposure. And you need to commit to these types of features. If you're hesitant and you're not committed into them, that's when you can have a wobble and a fall, and that's what the exposure is all about. That's the place you don't want to go. So if you're kind of building your way into it, and if you're thinking about going anywhere, thinking about going on this top side, on the high side, and just don't allow your eyeballs or your head to look at that exposed edge for a second. You've got to really just blank your mind and get that out of there. Focus on your line ahead, and if you're unsure, try and aim up that way. You won't know till you give it a go, so go out and find some rock work and have a play on it. We could bang on about slabs and crags for an awful long time. They're quite involved really, and obviously rocks are different all over the bit, but the best thing for you to do is to get out there, get stuck in and give it a go. Excellent, so that's it for another episode of our Skills and Technique feature. Do tune in again for the next edition where we'll look at some other skills and technique. Till next time, take care now.